Hello, is Candace Owens crazy like a fox? Is Candace Owens laughing all the way to the bank? My name is Jonathon Moseley, an attorney for 22 years, now in the land of retirement. And I want to talk about some of the legal issues first with regard to Candace Owens' a feud with Turning Point USA and outright accusations that Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk's widow, had Charlie Kirk assassinated. Now, you'd be surprised how many legal issues there are here. But of course, I don't mean whether or not she has the right to say what she wants to say. Those who know me, who would know anything about me, know I would fight for your right to speak your mind and to say what you want to say. And I would take even a more expansive view of the right to speak than most people do. I'm a lawyer. I've studied the Constitution and constitutional precedents quite a bit. Even the U.S. Supreme Court has said in precedents, quoting, that the answer to bad speech is more speech. It is, we've lost this ability. Nobody cares about the Constitution anymore. I believe the United States is sort of sinking back into the second dark ages. But back when we believed in the U.S. Constitution, it was very clear that the American way is, if you don't like what somebody is saying, give your opinion. All opinions are welcome. Better if you back them up, and better if you don't do something to hurt people unnecessarily, but you have the right to do it. And the remedy, as was clearly the American way, clearly the law, is if you disagree with something, answer it. Don't censor anybody. Just give your point of view. And that's what our Supreme Court, our American way, our American system has always been about, until recently, when, of course, the left went berserk. So obviously, the legal issues involved are not about whether anybody has the right to say what they want to say. But what Candace Owens is doing is pretending to be a private investigator. And that involves talking about legal issues, how investigations are run. She doesn't trust the official investigation. And that implicates a lot of questions about what's supposed to happen during a criminal prosecution investigation. What is the norm? What's going on in this area that she really doesn't know anything about, but that never stopped most people on the internet. She doesn't know how it goes. So what's really going on with the criminal investigation of the death of Charlie Kirk that she doesn't trust or like or whatever? In that regard, there are dozens and dozens of legal issues that we should be aware of, not whether anybody has the right to speak. That's not the point. So what's going on here? There apparently is a big fad that I didn't know about true crime drama, true crime fiction, true crime podcasts, series, radio things, shows that are actually not true at all. They're made up for the purpose of being entertaining, and they have certain qualities. It came to my attention with a really excellent TV series. I think it was HBO or Hulu, called Only Murders in the Building, with Selena Gomez. What's the first guy? It's short. And Steve Martin. And they live in this building in New York City, and they don't really get along. They kind of, for no good reason, get on each other's nerves until they discover at a restaurant that they're all fans of the same true crime drama fiction series. And they immediately want to know, from the last cliffhanger, what did Bo have in his mouth? And they all just bond over this thing. And apparently it's a big deal. And I think it goes on, 5 seasons, where maybe more, where they become the true crime fiction drama. They break into people's apartments. They break the law. They trespass. They do all kinds of things they shouldn't do. They have no authority to do it. They're just a bunch of private Nancy Drews or Hardy Boys. And they end up actually breaking some parts of the investigation and get the grudging respect of the police. Now, there's a lot of things where the title is not, I don't like the title. Like, what the heck is only murders in the building mean? It means that when they crack their first case, they then have a debate about, okay, we're done. We're not doing this anymore. And then one of the characters says, no, we got to keep doing this. So they debate back and forth and finally say, okay, look, we'll keep doing it, but only in our own building. We're not going to go all over the city. So that's where the rather stupid title comes from. So anyway, there's apparently this very big, very dramatic, very popular genre. I believe that's what Candace Owens is doing. Candace Owens is running a crime drama fictional series on the internet as if it's real, which of course is the best kind. And it has all the hallmarks, whatever hallmarks are. There's all the trappings, whatever that means, of exactly this kind of genre. And she's doing it in live time, in real time, and everybody's falling for it. And the one thing we can know is Candace Owens crazy like a fox? She's making more money than you are, than I am, than everybody who will ever watch this video, even if it turns out to be a lot, combined. She's making bank. So how crazy is she? What she's saying is crazy, but I think she's doing it on purpose. She's doing it to make money. And frankly, although I think her morals in some cases aren't really up to the job, she's doing a damn good job of it. If the goal is just to make money and you don't care who you hurt along the way, man, she's doing an excellent job of exploiting people's pain. And so there's a huge following of people who want to believe whatever crazy latest thing Candace Owens and her followers are coming up with. And they have the hallmarks of, say, a true crime drama, which is, I guess it's a lot like a soap opera, but it's about crime mystery. Because there's always the cliffhanger, there's always the surprise, the end of the episode, something happens that's totally unexpected, cliffhanger, tune in next week. You're not going to find out what happened unless you come back next week to see the next episode. And this is one of the qualities of Candace Owens' rant and rave, aiming to destroy Turning Point USA, to humiliate Charlie Kirk's grieving widow, and other people who are his friends. And now Candace Owens and her supporters have tapped into this idea that Israel had Charlie Kirk killed. Okay, but I've spent 22 years when I was a lawyer dissecting the allegations on both sides, getting to the bottom of things, and that doesn't fit that's just like she's just trying to tap into a pre-made interest group. What she says doesn't correspond to that as a motivation. It just doesn't go together. She's just exploiting a very large natural anti-Semitic audience, just as a springboard, one of many, to launch her rants against Turning Point USA and and the FBI, and they're not doing their job and everything like that. So let me jump ahead to some of the legal issues so that we've got some stuff coming and deal with that. And I'll get back to some of these other issues about what's going on. For example, all this discussion a lot of this discussion. There's so much. There's just so many topics, which is another thing. Flooding the field. One of the characteristics of a soap opera or a true crime fiction drama show is just flooding the field. So too many topics to keep straight. Your brain goes tilt. You can't handle it all, and so you get easily confused. And there's actually a technique called NLP, a version of hypnosis, where confusing and flooding the brain of somebody helps induce a kind of a hypnosis or addiction. So there's so many issues going on. But So the issue is that, well, why aren't the investigators doing this? Why aren't the investigators doing that? Okay, let's talk law. You won't know. They will not tell you. The criminal investigators are not going to come to your house, lay out their evidence and their game plan on your kitchen table for your personal entertainment. I worked for years on the January 6th cases, which was supposedly billed as one of the biggest criminal cases in our history. I think something like 40% of the FBI at one point or another had their hand in investigating that. And I can tell you from the experience, they do not want to tell you what they're doing. They're not up there. I mean, they're not like Norm Schwarzkopf in the Iraq War, explaining, telling every afternoon, what they hit and showing you video. They're not doing that. Whatever you think the investigators are doing, probably 80% chance that's not what they're doing. Whatever you think they're failing to do, they've probably already done it, and they just didn't tell you because, for many reasons, announcing what they're doing is going to hurt the investigation. It's going to tip people off. They don't want witnesses to coordinate their stories. They don't want people to know, oh, this is the document I need to destroy. They don't want people to know that. That's like criminal investigator 101. So all this talk about, Candace Owens and her investigators, her supporters, criticizing the FBI investigation. You don't know nothing about the criminal investigation. They make sure you don't know what they're doing because that's necessary for a quality investigation. The other thing, another issue of law that's closely related is all this doubt that's being thrown in the air about who really killed Charlie Kirk. Pragmatically in the courtroom, it's going to guarantee nobody can be convicted. It's like one of the sayings they have about a criminal prosecution is if the government prosecutes person A for a murder, they can't prosecute anybody else. Because if they then discover that person B did it, well, there was probable cause, there was sufficient cause to take it to trial, that person A did it. So how can you say beyond a reasonable doubt now that person B did it? By prosecuting the wrong person, you have completely polluted any possibility of prosecuting anybody else. Because you can always raise reasonable doubt about person B having already tried to prosecute person A. So everything that Candace Owens and her supporters are doing is going to make sure that nobody can be prosecuted for Charlie Kirk's death because they're throwing so much doubt and dirt in the air that, look, okay, let's just imagine for the fun of it, no matter what your experience is in life or your profession, you are the defense counsel for whomever probably really did it. I'm not going to say who really did it, but who knows for sure. But let's say you knew this person's the one who actually did it, and you're their defense counsel. Aren't you going to take all this stuff and use it in court? And if it's true, it's true. I'm not for deception, but I'm for all this nonsense and throwing dust in the air and getting off topic and chasing rabbit trails. You guarantee that the person who should be prosecuted is going to get away with it. Because no responsible defense attorney is going to go to trial without scouring all this stuff that's being thrown in the air by all these people. And like I say, the truth is the truth. If it comes out to be true, so be it. But it's not true. It's just creating a lot of noise. But the numbers, Candace Owens, as she boasted recently, was she took 2 weeks off heading into the Christmas season, and she's still number one on the internet. Now, remember, she is the person who decided that President of France, Macron, his wife, is a man. She's being sued over whether or not his wife is a man. she would know better, except she probably knows that she's going to make more money than whatever the lawsuit costs her. She's not afraid to go out there and say that that Macron's wife is a man. Now we should have. I will try to get on here and have a session on defamation, because whether you're an observer, a participant, just an average person, someone just living your life, and you would be completely shocked to think that anybody would accuse you of defamation. It would be good to know some of these things. I'm also, said in an earlier version, I'm going to get the proper software to be able to put in inserts, video, things like that in some of these future sessions. I didn't get around to it. I did download Audacity. That's the name of the software, which I've used before a little bit, and we'll get better over time. But I wanted to get this out here. So it's just kind of amazing what's going on. So one of the characteristics, I believe, because I've tried to make sense of this, I was a big fan of Candace Owens, and maybe 5 years ago, whatever. I think she's very well spoken. She's very smart. When she wants to argue a point, she is very good at it. And she was taking the position that, on the conservative side, some people I trust, a reporter who follows things, and frankly, she's a friend of mine, but she takes way too much time to dig. I mean, something that some reporters would put out there in 3 hours, she'll spend 3 months on it. So I tend to trust that she knows what she's talking about, because she overdoes things. But she said that Candace Owens used to be a leftist, a Bernie Sanders supporter. And I'm not going to go any further than that without doing my own homework. And we're going to do a whole section on that if it's true. And the reason is it okay to do an ad hominem attack? No. The reason I want to do a mock or simulated ad hominem attack on Candace Owens is to illustrate how absurd it is. If you're going to go around and make ad hominem attacks on somebody, well, let's test that out. Let's see how that works. Does Candace Owens have the right, no matter what her past was, to speak? Yes. In fact, some of the best conservatives, the strongest conservatives I know, used to be leftists. And when they finally come around to it, they come around hard. And they are stronger and more bedrock than most conservatives. And I've heard her speak and argue things, and I really admire that. But if you're gonna depend upon ad hominem attacks, let's illustrate why you don't do that. Why it's not a good idea. It doesn't make logical sense. So we'll get into that before, later, and see how it feels when the shoe is on the other foot. Which again goes to the credibility. Like the purpose is not to hurt somebody. The purpose is not to make anybody unhappy. The purpose is to test the credibility and meaningfulness and reliability of that kind of argument, which is zilch. And so anyway, we'll get into that. But some of the things that are an issue is, for example, the biggest discussion. Okay, so Charlie Kirk was assassinated at the University of Utah, and it's become because of Candace Owens and some other people, it's become such a huge controversy that I just this morning watched a I don't know what he was. He was dressed as a farmer, but he's obviously a gun enthusiast. He's was at a gun range, and he's shooting hocks of ham to test what happens when you hit Charlie Kirk's head with a bullet. I mean, I think maybe we've gone a bit too far here. I mean, you've got some guy in overalls like a farmer, on YouTube in his farmer outfit shooting ham. Maybe we're a little bit, maybe we need to lean back inside the roller coaster cabin and keep our hands inside the car. So anyway, this is what's going on, and one of the biggest issues is whether or not there was some meeting at Fort I mean, it's spelled with H, but it's, I guess, pronounced like Wakucha or something. And I'm just having a senior moment here. I've heard it many times. But so apparently there were all these top level colonels and special teams, and they all were meeting there on the final plans to assassinate Charlie Kirk. Sorry to say it, but it's really not that hard to shoot somebody. It should be. You know, it's a sad world we live in. We live in vulnerable bodies. I wish we were, we were armored like crocodiles, or we were so easy to kill as human beings. But it's really not that hard to kill somebody. You don't need a whole room full of colonels and special forces and all kinds of other nonsense just to kill one person, which is a horrible thing to say. It's a very sad thing to say, but it's not that hard. So they've got this huge big meeting, but they don't lock the door. So some guy walks in, and here's what they're saying. I mean, you walk into the top secret meeting. Don't you think they would have stopped and go, "Who's that?" and would have stopped talking? No, he's there long enough to hear that they're planning the assassination of Charlie Kirk. They didn't lock the door. I guess in special forces training, or, the military academies, they don't tell you, if you're having a secret meeting, lock the door. Station somebody outside. Well, you don't want to be too obvious. Oh, fine. So have somebody across the hall reading the newspaper, or slowly eating a sandwich on a chair and pretending that he's just having lunch and being the lookout. I mean, the simplest criminals know about lookouts. If you've watched any crime movies, you know about lookouts. And yet all these top people who are the best, who are able to, to carry out this incredible plot to kill Charlie Kirk are, they don't have a lookout and they don't lock the door. And they keep talking when someone comes in long enough for him to know what they're talking about. So the Candace Owens group goes all into like, well, was this guy, could this guy have been there at that time in the morning? Was he somewhere else? Did he have an alibi? Who cares? Who the flip cares? I mean, do you know the number of electrons, the amount of electricity that has been burned worldwide, talking about whether this guy was on a flight, when his flight got in? Could he have been at Fort Wakucha or whatever at that time of day, on that day? I mean, why do we care? I mean, but that's the characteristic of the crime drama. That's how you get people to tune in. You get them sucked into all these controversies that have nothing to do with who killed Charlie Kirk. But that's characteristic of entertainment, not an investigation. I mean, Candace Owens could have been one of the best political conservative activists of our era. She could have run for Congress. She could have done a lot of great things. I guess she just decided, what the hell, let's make some money. I don't know what happened. But the thing is that she is not qualified as a criminal investigator. Well, I'm a lot more qualified. I've never been an investigator. I've never been with the FBI, but with my work as a lawyer for 22 years, I know a hell of a lot more about it than she does. So anyway, so the thing is so we've got all this talk about when this guy was somewhere else. And there's all this discussion about whether or not his alibi holds up. He doesn't owe you an alibi. You are not entitled to his alibi. I mean, if he has an alibi or not, who cares? He owes you nothing. Now, if the FBI calls him in for an interview, that's voluntary. He can take the fifth. He can refuse to cooperate. If they then subpoena him, he better damn well show up. If you are subpoenaed, like the one thing that Steve Bannon did wrong when he was called to testify for Congress, although actually it's a complete lie because his attorney was negotiating for a different date. And there was confusion about what the date was. He never said he would not testify. Never. But the thing is, if you are called to testify, if you are subpoenaed to testify, show up. If you say, well, I can't answer that question because it might be executive privilege, I'd like the court to instruct me. And they may get all mad and say, oh, well, you have to answer. Well, I'd like the court to decide. But be there. Whatever you do not be a no-show. So if they want to, if the FBI or the police want to subpoena these guys, that's different. But the court of Candace Owens is not entitled to his alibi. But so there's this big discussion about whether or not, when was his flight and all of the, who cares? Unless you're running a crime drama, unless it's a crime soap opera, which it is. And like I say, Candace Owens is smarter than this. She is. So I'm wondering, why is this happening? Why is she doing these things? How does somebody pretty smart suddenly become so dumb? And I go, oh, she's being smarter than all of us. She's counting her money on the way to the bank. And who am I to criticize? She's got more money than I do. So, what am I going to criticize? So anyway, so we go on and on about this stuff. And so then apparently Erica Kirk did something funny with her eyes. This is one of the videos out today. Why is Erica Kirk making this gesture with her eyes? Are you kidding me? So this is going to tell you who killed Charlie Kirk, because a grieving widow who watched her husband's neck get blown out and was shown on national television. I think she was there. If I'm not mistaken, she was there. Her children saw it, but were not there. I think maybe her children were there too. People do weird things. When your entire world has been ripped apart and you're on the verge, every time you try to speak, you're on the verge of breaking down crying. You're not going to look normal. So the attitude of all these crowds is, do people make these kind of look with their eyes? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And the issue is, as admissible evidence, what they're doing is like, well, how could this happen? Oh, so you don't know. The hallmark of the conspiracy, whether it's 9/11 or all these other things or Charlie Kirk or whatever, is, well, how could that happen? Oh, so you don't know. What you're telling us is you don't know. Now go into court. I sponsor, Your Honor, I would like to call coach, whatever, the coach to the witness stand. Now, what do you know about something or other? And he says, well, how could that happen? And the other side writes up, motion to strike the answer, Your Honor. That's speculation. He's admitting he has no knowledge. Granted, the testimony is stricken. Have a nice day, coach. That's not admissible evidence. The fact that you don't know something does not prove anything. You cannot prove anything by saying, how could this happen? That has never been proved. And it's rampant. It's a disease. It's a pandemic. to say that, well, how could this happen? Like, you know, the astronauts going to the moon. How could they go in this small tinfoil thing? Oh, so you don't know. So what you have established is that you don't know. And that proves what? It proves that you don't know. You just admitted that you don't know. That is not proof of anything. Now, I know as an amateur interested scientist and an astronomer about things like the vacuum of space and how the gravity on the moon is 1/6 of the Earth. And doesn't surprise, I mean, the truth is, the skin of the lunar module was deliberately very thin and lightweight because that's necessary. You say, well, couldn't a micrometeorite pierce it and go through there? Well, the truth is that no matter how big you made it, you're going to have that problem anyway. So if you made it 1 foot thick, a micrometeorite going at the speeds that are like, they could go through it just as easily. So you take your chances. You go up there in a tiny, flimsy lunar module and you say your prayers and you touch your lucky rabbit's foot and you just hope for the best. So you say, well, how could they have this flimsy skin? Because if you're hit with a micrometeorite, you're dead. Period. So it doesn't matter. But the thing is these are the kind of thing. I'm sorry I got off on that too much. I'll do another video on that sometime. But so the thing is, for example, I'm going to do a video. I'm going to get into the details a little about the truth. I'm going to expose the truth that Candace Owens is a man. Why? Well, that's what she did to Mrs. Macron. And her reasoning for Mrs. Macron was, well, she's never proven that she's a woman. I want to see the receipts. Okay, that gets a little bit disturbing. But you know, one can take a DNA test and look for XY chromosomes or XX chromosomes and stay in family hour and not get indecent. But you know, it's just an uncomfortable topic. But the thing is to say that, you know, all the arguments she made against Macron, Macron's wife, let's use it against her. Has she ever proven that she's not a man? No. Do we have receipts that she's not a man? No. You know, so what does that tell us? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You know, it proves that we don't know with absolute certainty if she's a woman, which is just another way of proving, well, you don't know. You have admitted and proven that you have no information. You have nothing to say. There is nothing to say because you don't have nothing. So we have all these issues, but, you know, for example, they're saying that well, there was all this controversy about whether or not Tyler Robinson turned himself in, whether he was arrested, whether his parents turned him in, whether he went to his parents and said, I did it, and they turned him in, you know, urged him to turn himself in, or whether they came to him, you know. And again, what does that tell us? Nothing. That tells us absolutely nothing about who killed Charlie Kirk or why. You know, so the thing is like they say, well, the police station has lost a video of when he came in. How do you know? Well, I heard it somewhere. They're not going to tell you that. You know when you're going to find out if there's a video? At trial. Now most prosecutors believe in something that is derisively, derogatorily called trial by ambush. Trial by ambush, in my opinion, is a violation of the constitutional right of due process. It's improper. It should be illegal. It basically is unethical and therefore illegal for prosecutors under the rules of professional conduct. But they fervently believe in surprising you at trial. They would do anything to make sure you don't know what they're holding in their hand. And if they have to survive a motion by giving out information, they will give the bare minimum. And when you get to trial, there will be stuff you didn't know. So is there a video of Tyler Robinson turning himself in? You don't know. And you don't know because they don't want you to know. Not because it's Charlie Kirk, but because every single criminal case going on all year long in every jurisdiction in the entire United States, they do the same thing. Doesn't matter what it is. If it's tax fraud, if it's, altering your license plate or, or turning back your odometer to sell your car, whatever it is, they will come up there and they will surprise you. And a good lawyer has to be prepared to say, to have thought it through. Say, what they're telling me they have, I don't believe it. I got to be ready for anything. Now, there aren't very many good lawyers, unfortunately. But a good lawyer would say, well, what if they're lying to me? Because I know they are. They always do. So the thing is, is there a video? Did they lose a video? We don't know. And if they did, so what? What does that have to do with it? I mean, if I get up and say, if I get up as if I were still a lawyer and I got up and I said, Your Honor, I want to ask Sergeant so-and-so if they have lost the videotape. And the prosecutor is going to get up and object. How is this relevant? And the judge is going to say, I agree. Motion, what's the word? Motion sustained, objection sustained. If we have the video or we don't have the video, that tells us nothing about whether Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. It doesn't. I mean, I know that the emotions and the excitement and the drama but what did Bo have in his mouth? Selena Gomez says in the TV series. Well, that's interesting, but it doesn't tell us anything about the issues in the case. Supposedly Erica Kirk makes funny signs with her eyes in certain cases. All right. You find someone who is in grief, who is struggling not to break into tears, who is trying to focus on what they're saying and not their grief. And I guarantee you, they're going to look, you know what? If they look normal, that would make me suspicious. If somebody is making all kinds of odd facial expressions, that's mean they're torn apart inside. And that's where it just becomes disgusting, this whole thing. So she supposedly had a, I guess, former boyfriend, maybe former fiance, and she said something about, at one point she said that she hadn't dated anybody for 5 years before she met Charlie Kirk. And so the Candace crowd wants to investigate, oh, is that true? And again, so what? Who cares? Who cares if that's true? And one of the things is if somebody lies about one thing, they're probably lying about something else. No, they're not. That's called a bad act. That's called a pattern. It's called pattern evidence. It is inadmissible in court. Pattern evidence is not evidence. The only time it might be evidence is if it shows knowledge. Like if knowledge of the law, for example, if somebody keeps getting pulled over from DWI, they're going to eventually learn, oh, I'm not allowed to drive drunk. It doesn't mean that they did it again, but it means that they knew that they shouldn't have because they got busted for it before. So it can go to intent. It can go to knowledge. but it doesn't mean they did it again. It doesn't. So if Erica or somebody else lied, does that mean they're lying now? No. And remember, the rules of the law are designed to eliminate common mistakes. The reason why we have all these rules of evidence is because human nature is such that we naturally believe things that are irrational. We believe things like that, and society over hundreds of years in the Anglo-American legal tradition, and even back to the Roman era of law and the French code, have taught us that certain things are unreliable. Certain things are not admissible evidence because experience has shown us over centuries or thousands of years, depending on what it is, that humans believe these things that are manifestly untrue. And so we do not allow them in court because they're generally not reliable. They're not true. So did Erica Kirk accurately state that she did not date anybody else for 5 years before Charlie Kirk? And first of all, I don't know. Secondly, I don't care. Thirdly, what is consistent with human nature, especially female human nature? And we don't like to think of it these days, but there are slight differences between male and female. They are nothing like the nonsense that has developed over the centuries and over human existence. The difference between men and women is very slight compared to what people think, but it's not zero. And do women want to expose themselves publicly if they don't need to? No, they don't. I have a friend who I know for a fact was dating one guy. And I'm not going to give any details so that anybody who might know could figure it out. And I mean, it's not just that she said it or the circumstances. I saw it. I was with them. I was doing different things. Not only did she declare he's my boyfriend, but I could see that they were dating in while we were doing other things, business kind of things. And then it broke. Apparently, it broke down. I never found out why. And then she denies that they were ever boyfriends. They were ever boyfriend, girlfriend. I know that's not true. Do people do that? They don't. She doesn't feel that the world is entitled to her private feelings. And I can't argue with that. Can you? Does the entire planet have a right to your personal feelings and your personal life? No. Do women sometimes bury their personal issues because they feel exposed? Yes, they do. Is there something suspicious about somebody saying, not blurting out, vomiting out all of their personal issues? Yes, that's normal. That is not unusual. And so what does that tell you about Erica Kirk? Nothing. It tells you that she doesn't feel you're entitled to her personal issues, and you're not. So it's now become Cabot Phillips, I think his name is he killed Charlie Kirk or participated in killing Charlie Kirk. In fact, it's come down to the point that Erica Kirk, they say, and of course I'm denying that's true. It's ridiculous, but that's what they're saying. Why? I don't know, just because they're nuts. The people who are saying this. To get it even more nutty, they're saying that Erica Kirk was planted in Charlie Kirk's life specifically to sabotage him and kill him. Years ago. I don't know how old their children are, but it's probably like 10 years. I should know this, but I just escapes me. But the thing is that, this is just nuttery nuttery gone berserk. I mean, this is like the people are outdoing themselves to become bigger fruitcakes than the last person. And yet somehow this mania is taking on a life of its own, but based on the idea that some of these assertions actually mean something when they'd be inadmissible in court because they're completely nuts. They're stupid. And so so they've got this thing where I think the witness, I'm going to get it mixed up and I don't want to do that. There's these guys, Valhalla and other people and various people. And one of the guys who, one of the guys who's supposedly a witness is shown, the questions could come down to like, why was he clean shaven? And then he had a light beard, a beard coming in. What? This is why I conclude that Candace Owens is a man. She sure knows a lot about men's beards and how they grow. She must be a man, therefore, which of course is ludicrous. It's absurd. Just to illustrate the absurdity of this nonsense. So if she knows that much about beards, maybe she's a man. And which is, of course, ridiculous. She's a very beautiful woman. But the thing is that so we've got this nonsense about whether or not this guy, one guy, and I should stop and look it up if I had my audacity. See, YouTube does not allow stop and start. To stream this like this, I can't stop and start. When I get my software set up, I'll be able to stop, put in the newspaper heading or whatever, put in the thing, and then continue from that. So I'm not going to go look it up. I'm just not going to use the name. So the thing is that so he has a photograph buying balloons at a grocery store, which somebody thinks is Publix, which I'm usually dubious about, because if you live in certain parts of the country, you're going to go to Publix. If you go to other parts of the country, it's Safeway, and I'm pretty sure they're the same company because my frequent flyer miles work. They're the same look and feel restaurant, or shopping center or whatever. But I think they're the same. But they go by Safeway in the north and they go by Publix in the south. So I think people are just making assumptions and calling it Publix. But so the question is who takes pictures of themselves buying balloons? What does that prove? Somebody did. Well, what if this guy is the only person in the history of the earth who's ever taken pictures of himself buying balloons? What does that prove? Nothing. Maybe he's just, we're individuals. We're not carbon copies. We're not robots. We're not clones. We don't come out of a cookie cutter mass production line. We're individuals. We all do different things. And that's perfectly okay. I have never been skydiving. I'm kind of wishing I would. I've been on boats most of my life. Never been on a jet ski. Never been on a swamp airboat. Other people have. I haven't. So what? We're individuals. Now, as it so happens, the more you look into it, the balloons were for a reveal party. And let's just, whether you know what a reveal party is or not, let's just be crystal clear. His wife was about to have a baby. And because of ultrasound, they knew whether he was a boy or a girl that they were expecting. And they were going to have a party with all their family and friends and reveal the gender of the coming child. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the colors are not really perfect, but I think there was a balloon for both possibilities, just to build the excitement and the surprise of the reveal. And so somebody's taking his picture as he's buying stuff, including balloons, for the reveal party. So would you build excitement and put it on social media and say, come to the reveal party, here are the balloons, here I am, I'm getting ready for the reveal party, come join us? Yes, they would. You know, people say, well, nobody would take pictures of themselves buying a balloon. Yes, they would. It's nonsense. It's completely, I mean, because the standard is human beings are all the same. They're all like me, is the nonsense. I don't understand why they would do something different. Therefore, they didn't. False. Absolutely false. So the thing is like once you find out the backstory, it makes perfect sense. Would I do it? I don't know. But, you know, but he did. So what? I mean, you know, criminal defense attorneys, I'm getting the dust out of my feet. Criminal defense attorneys really want to argue a lot. Would anybody do this? You know, like, let's see what the prosecutor is saying that this happened, and he did this. Like, nobody would do that. And everybody in the courtroom knows, yeah, they would. You know, the judge is going to say, you know, some criminals are stupid. You know, everybody involved in the legal system are going, you're arguing that no criminal would be that stupid. I know a few. I've run into a few. Yes, they would. You know, would my client do something that stupid? Maybe. It's been known to happen. I mean, the judge is sitting there thinking, Smith, McDonald, Ogilvy, you know, Fisher. I can, let me tell you, let me make a list for you of people who've done things that you wouldn't expect. So El Shabazz, you know, so you know, we want to make the argument, would anybody do this? Could be. It could happen. Yes. Say, well, that would be really strange. So what? People do strange things. You know, you could argue, well, my defendant, my client would never have broken the law because they might get caught. Well, lots of people commit crimes even though they might get caught. They do it anyway. So the guy takes a. So the question is, where did he take the balloon picture of the balloons? Who took the picture? Okay, Candace, pay me $1,000. I'll go into a Publix and I'll find some bystander, say, hey, would you please take, you know, we're expecting a child. Would you please take a picture of me? No problem. You know, I probably get everybody in the grocery store willing to take a picture. They probably all applaud. You know, like how, you know, oh, that's so cute. You're expecting, you want balloons. So is that a problem? No. But so much energy has been expended. I mean, I don't believe it. I know global warming doesn't exist, human man-made global warming, but let's just say it did. How much global warming has been burned in fuel to pay for all the electrons on the internet about this guy's balloons? It's just crazy, and you'd never get it admitted in court. Okay, what else? I mean, there's just so much, and it's just so much nonsense. Oh, and then somebody showed. There's this one guy who's really interesting. Damn it! I was going to start this video, and I don't have the stop-start ability. To start out saying, I'm just asking questions. Hey, don't hate me. I'm just asking questions. And no, they're not. How do you know somebody is not just asking questions? Because they won't listen to the answers. If someone's just asking questions, they, funny you should ask. Here's the answer. Here's the documentation. They go, oh, great. Thank you for showing that to me. They don't want the answers. They just want to smear people with questions and pretend they weren't answered. So if somebody exposes what the Candace Owens crowd is saying, they just come right back and pretend they never said it. And why does society need Candace Owens asking questions? Can she ask questions? Sure. But is it some, some special sacred rule that she gets to ask questions and demand answers. And then if you answer, then she wants receipts. Is Macron's wife a woman? Send us a picture. It's just ridiculous. It's like, no, the burden of proof is not on you asking questions. You can be an investigative reporter. We've had some great ones. Look at all the president's men. If you really want to know how it's done. When all the president's men, when Woodward and Bernstein brought in evidence to their editor, he looked it over and goes, "No, this is too thin. Go out and get some stronger evidence." Asking questions can be a very honored pursuit, but nobody owes you the answers. And I know people say, well, we don't trust our institutions. I don't trust your institutions. I have in-person, close-up, eyewitness reason not to trust our institutions, far more than you do, having been in the system. But that doesn't make the opposite true. It's like if the FBI says that grass is green, the grass is still green. Say, well, the FBI lies. The FBI says that the grass is green. Well, then it must be red. Because the FBI says it's green, so it must be red. No, that doesn't help. Do I trust the FBI? Hell no. I think they're a cesspool. But that doesn't prove anything. So anyway, I should probably take advice from Noel Fritz and some other people and cut it short and pick up another time and make it into installments as we approach an hour. But the thing is let's see, any other legal issues? This isn't a big thing, but of course, when the officials do an investigation, they have to keep a chain of custody. So if they find, this is what happens in all these crime dramas. They'll Only Murders in the Building. Selena Gomez will find something. They'll make no effort to prove, how did I come by this? I have this in my purse. Where did you get it from? There's no proof as to where it started out. You take photographs. You have a witness. You have even some very good. One of them is Murder in a Small Town. Very charming. Human drama, romance, and also crime drama and everything like that. And the guy will find something in a house and he'll make no effort to say, hey, come here, witness this for me. I need a witness. When I worked at Judicial Watch, I'd be walking down the hallway and Larry Klayman would be talking to the prosecutors in some case, and they'd and he'd say, John, get in here. Get in here. What? Listen. He just wanted a witness to what they said. He didn't want them making it up later. So I just sit there and I'd take notes, and I didn't know what it was about because he just surprised me. But he wanted a witness. So in the legal system, you have to be able to prove your chain of custody of the facts and the evidence. And as a result, there are things that may be evidence that just never get used. There might be things where the prosecutor or the other side or litigators are saying, this is great stuff, but I can't prove where we found it. So too bad. We'll have to go with what we got. And there may be things, and it's classic in the legal system. Judges comment on it. Appellate judges comment on it, that litigators make choices. And they may say, look, I've got 12 issues here, but these 8 are my strongest. So I'm not going to mention the other 4 because these relate to the crimes, relate to the elements. These prove what I need to prove. When I end up with closing argument, I've proven what I need to prove. I'm done. And I've got lots of other stuff, but I'm not going to use it because it's of lesser impact. And then somebody says, well, why didn't you talk about this? Or why didn't you talk about that? And the appellate courts will say, because he made a choice, that the lawyer made a litigation choice. And therefore, we're not going to second guess that. But all the private independent sleuths, they all say, they're all like, the prosecutor didn't, or the defense counsel didn't mention number 11, so therefore he's in on it, and he's on the take, and he's corrupt, and he's being paid off or something. Like, no, he made a litigation choice. And so we could go on, and I will, because there's no way you can talk about all this stuff in one section, in one session. I was going to get into Israel a little bit here. I guess I did a little bit, because I don't think this has anything to do with Israel, except that the proponents of all this drama, they just think they have an automatic built-in audience, that they've got at least a minimum springboard to get all this stirred up. But I don't think the people who are at the leading of this are actually interested in Israel at all, which is a really stupid thing. Charlie Kirk, I believe, saved our country along with God, and he was a big proponent of God. But we won the 2024 election. I'm a Republican, been since 1984, so I'll say we. Although there are several Republican parties and some of them are scum, but the conservatives, the patriots, the Tea Party, the MAGA people now. So we have been trying to struggle through. And my sister actually was working on this same project probably 15 years earlier, and nobody had the foresight to back it. And then Charlie Kirk picked up on the same thing, reached the young, swung the election, and made a massive change in our country. And he would have continued to do so. Our entire politics was being restructured because of Charlie Kirk and others, Scott Pressler, and others changing it. And Turning Point USA did more to save our country than practically any other institution. Certainly the Republican Party does everything it can to destroy their country by handing it over to the Democrats. So he had tremendous influence, but not on Israel. I mean, if anybody doesn't like Israel, he's really was not that big of a player. I mean, if Charlie Kirk started to have doubts about Israel, so what? There's lots of people saying lots of stupid things about Israel. And we can talk about that some other time, because frankly, Israel is fighting our wars for us. When the United States went into Iraq, and I was on the radio on air when the bombs started falling, and Israel was saying, don't. You're going to F it up. The Saddam Hussein is going to attack Israel and rally the entire Middle East against Israel as his only way out of the United States invading Iraq. And so they did not want a war with Iraq. Lockheed Martin wanted a war with Iraq. Boeing, Northrop Grumman, what's the fourth one? Shoot. They all wanted a war with Iraq. And we spent $7 trillion in 20 years and got nothing done. We pay $2 billion to Israel, and they kill our enemies for us. The ones who chant death to America, down, down USA, which in their language and culture means something far worse than it sounds silly to us, but it doesn't sound silly to them. And they would be blowing up the public school in your neighborhood, machine gunning school buses, blowing up subways, burning down apartment complexes in your city, in your neighborhood, and probably killing your children or nephews and nieces here on U.S. soil. That's why my grandfather went and volunteered for World War II 6 months before Pearl Harbor, because he said, I want to fight them over there, not when they come and they march down Park Street near my wife and my daughter. And so they're doing our job for us, and we pay them a pittance. We pay them the coins from the Pentagon's sofas and couches, and they fight our wars for us. But if Charlie Kirk had changed his position on Israel, it would not have been that significant. It was not that big of a deal. There's lots of other voices raising stupid questions about things they know nothing about. Charlie Kirk was not a player in the who can be more stupid about Israel game. So they did kill Charlie Kirk because he was restructuring and saving the country from the Democrats. And Candace Owens and other people are doing everything they can to complete the destruction of Turning Point USA. They killed its leader. They're trying to assassinate the character of his wife. And they're trying to do everything they can to make sure the Democrats keep winning by destroying the greatest threat to Democrat political dominance that we've had since Ronald Reagan. Anyway, lots to talk about. I'm going to figure out the software here and get it and do a much better job on other things. I'd love to see. No, I'm not going to say that. Oh God, I'll get in so much trouble. Anyway, I'm just going to say Candace Owens. We'll see how eager she is to provide receipts, which can be done by DNA, whether she's a man or not. And we'll get into some of these other things. And have a nice day. Hope I made a lot of you mad, because maybe you'll think then. Talk to you later. Bye.